My neighbor insisted my dog was a stray and refused to give him back. Could you ever imagine someone stealing your dog, then parading him around like their own rescue? Even fundraising money for his care? What started as a completely normal Tuesday, giving my sweet Duke a bath, spiraled into a heart-wrenching 5-day nightmare that exposed the absolute worst in my neighbor, Janet. Janet, my neighbor. She'd been obsessed with getting a dog for months. Seriously, she'd prattle on at her book club about her perfect yard for a German Shepherd, how she'd already picked out the name Baxter. She was just waiting for the right dog to come along. What she really meant, though, was a free dog. Not one from a shelter with fees, not one from a breeder with prices. She wanted a dog that would just appear, like the universe owed her one. That Tuesday, I was in the shower when Duke, my big, goofy German Shepherd, managed to push through a loose board in our fence. My stomach dropped when I realized he was gone, but the damage was done. He wandered right into Janet's yard, probably chasing a squirrel. Janet was out on her deck, sipping coffee when she saw him. A beautiful German Shepherd. No collar, because I'd just taken it off for his bath. Just standing there, amidst her petunias. She didn't knock on any doors, didn't post in the neighborhood group, didn't even call animal control. Instead, she just opened her sliding door and called him inside. For Janet, the universe had delivered. When her husband, Paul, came home, he found Duke stretched out on their couch. "Where'd this dog come from?" he asked, clearly confused. Janet, meanwhile, was already attaching a brand new collar she'd bought months ago, a collar clearly meant for Baxter. "He just showed up in our yard," she declared. "Must be a stray. No collar, no tags. He's ours now." Paul looked uncertain. "Shouldn't we check if someone's looking for him?" But Janet had already made up her mind. "If someone cared about this dog," she said, her voice dripping with self-righteousness, they wouldn't let him roam free. He chose us. Their son, Colby, arrived an hour later. Janet presented Duke like a game show prize. "Meet Baxter, our new dog." Colby immediately started snapping pictures, while Duke just looked utterly confused. "Doesn't he look perfect with our family?" she gushed. I found Duke was missing around noon. I'd already fixed the fence board, but the damage was definitely done. I searched for 3 grueling hours. My heart was in my throat the entire time. Finally, someone mentioned seeing Janet walking a German Shepherd that morning. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. I walked straight to her door and knocked. She answered with this sickeningly sweet, fake innocence. "Can I help you?" I explained about Duke, barely able to keep my voice steady. She tilted her head, feigning confusion. "I don't know any Duke, but we do have a new dog we found." "Found where?" I asked, my voice rising. "In our yard. Alone. Abandoned. That's my dog." I practically shouted, "You have my dog!" Her expression hardened. Her eyes turned to chips of ice. "Actually, we have our dog. Baxter came to us. If he was yours, why was he running loose? No collar, no supervision. That's neglect." I tried to explain about the fence, the bath, the shower, but Janet wasn't listening. Her jaw was set. "Sorry, but Baxter is ours now. We've already bonded. Paul, come tell this person about our new dog." Paul appeared behind her, looking sheepish but defiant. "Yeah, he's ours. Found him fair and square. If you can't contain your animals, you shouldn't have them." Then they slammed the door shut in my face, leaving me standing there, utterly bewildered, my heart pounding with a mix of fury and disbelief. I immediately called the police. The officer who responded looked tired, like I was wasting his time, even before I started talking. "So, you lost your dog and someone found it? They won't give him back. It's theft." I insisted. He sighed, then knocked on Janet's door. She came out with a whole speech prepared. "Officer, we rescued this stray dog. No identification, no collar, wandering alone. We gave him a home." The officer turned to me. Do you have proof this is your dog? His vet records are at home, photos on my phone. I pleaded, but right now, physically, do you have proof? Janet jumped in, her voice annoyingly chirpy. We already bought him everything. Food, bed, toys. He's been here for 6 hours. The officer actually wrote that down like it meant something. He just shrugged, calling it a civil matter, like my heartbreak was just a trivial dispute. You'll need to sort it out yourselves, he said and left. Janet stood there, a smug, victorious smirk on her face. Baxter loves his new home, she called after me. Stop calling him Duke. That night, she posted on every social media platform, blessed to announce, we've rescued a beautiful stray German Shepherd, already part of our family. Heart emoji, dog emoji, house emoji. People congratulated her. What a lucky dog, they gushed. He chose the right family. This went on for 3 days. 3 days of pure torture, seeing my dog through their window. Animal control said that without immediate proof, they couldn't just seize an animal from a home. Janet even started a GoFundMe for Baxter's medical care, which raised $200. I just wanted to scream. Finally, I cooked up a desperate plan. I called Janet and told her that Duke needed his special medication from his regular vet. Without it, he'd get really sick. It was a lie, but she didn't know that. She agreed to bring him, but only if I paid for everything. She wanted free vet care for her free dog. We met at the veterinary clinic. Janet had brought Colby for backup, probably for moral support. They were loudly telling everyone in the waiting room their rescue story. How Baxter just appeared in their yard like magic. How they saved him from the streets. My blood was boiling, but I stayed quiet. When the vet called us back, Dr. Rawlings entered. Janet immediately launched into her spiel. We need to establish care for our new rescue dog, Baxter. Found him 5 days ago. No owner ever showed up. Dr. Rawlings, bless him, reached for his microchip scanner. Let me just check for a microchip first. Standard procedure for found dogs. Janet laughed nervously. It was a choking, desperate laugh. He probably doesn't have one. He was a stray. The scanner beeped immediately. Dr. Rawlings looked at the screen, and his eyebrows went up. He turned it towards me so I could see. The display showed my name, my address, my phone number, and Duke's registration date from 3 years ago. Everything was right there in black and white. Janet's face drained of all color, like someone had pulled the plug. Colby stared down at his phone, trying to disappear into it. A tidal wave of sweet, pure relief washed over me, quickly followed by a furious, scalding rage. She had put me through 5 days of hell, and this information was sitting under Duke's skin the entire time. Janet opened her mouth, but nothing came out at first. Then the words tumbled out of her mouth, a frantic, desperate torrent. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I thought strays don't have chips. I was just trying to help a dog in need. I would never steal someone's pet. She kept talking faster and faster, like if she said enough words, she could make this all go away. Dr. Rawlings held up his hand to stop her. His patience visibly wore thin. Ma'am, responsible rescuers always check for microchips first thing. It's the very first step. Any shelter, any rescue group, any vet would tell you that keeping a chipped dog is legally theft. He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was explaining that water is wet. I want my dog back right now. The words clawed their way out, sharper than I intended. Janet actually shook her head. But he's bonded with us. It's been 5 days. Colby loves him. We bought him things. She was desperately clutching at straws. Dr. Rawlings's expression turned stern. The microchip establishes legal ownership. I'm required by law to return this dog to his registered owner. That's her, he said, pointing at me. You need to return the dog immediately. Janet's eyes filled with tears. But I spent money on him. I bought food and a bed and toys. I raised money for his care. $200 on GoFundMe. Her voice cracked. You stole my dog, and then you asked people for money under false pretenses. I couldn't keep the anger out of my voice anymore. That's fraud on top of theft. You took him, and you lied to everyone about it. Janet's facade crumbled completely, giving way to ugly, gasping sobs. Dr. Rawlings excused himself and stepped out into the hallway. I could hear him talking quietly on his phone. Janet and I sat there in the exam room in this awful silence. The air in that room was thick with unspoken accusation. Duke was between us, looking utterly confused about why everyone was so upset. Colby kept opening his mouth like he wanted to say something to his mom, but she wouldn't look at him. He'd glance at her, then at me, then back at his phone. I could see it on his face. He was starting to understand how bad this actually was. His mom hadn't rescued a stray. She'd stolen someone's dog and then bragged about it online. He shifted in his chair, probably wanting to be anywhere but here. The minutes dragged by. Janet wiped her eyes with her sleeve. I just wanted a dog so badly, she whispered. It's not an excuse, I know, but I just wanted him to be ours. Her voice, usually so confident, was now a mere whisper of defeat. That doesn't make it okay, I said, my voice level but firm. You saw a dog without a collar, and you just took him. You didn't even try to find his owner. Dr. Rawlings came back in. An officer is on his way. He should be here in about 20 minutes. Janet's head snapped up. An officer, doctor? Rawlings nodded. This is a legal matter now. The dog needs to be returned to his rightful owner, and there may be charges too. Consider. We waited. Nobody talked. Janet cried quietly. Colby stared at his phone. I sat there with my arms crossed, watching Duke. He kept looking at me, like he recognized me, but couldn't figure out why Janet was the one holding his leash. 20 minutes felt like hours. Finally, there was a knock on the door, and a different police officer walked in. He was younger than the first one, with dark hair and sharp eyes that took in the whole scene immediately. His name tag said Schulte. Omar Schulte. I'm Officer Schulte. I understand we have a situation with a dog ownership dispute. Dr. Rawlings explained about the microchip and showed him the scanner display. Officer Schulte took notes, and then asked each of us to give our statement. Janet told her version about finding a stray. I told mine about Duke escaping during my shower. When I mentioned the GoFundMe, Officer Schulte's whole attitude changed. He stopped writing and looked up at Janet. You crowd-funded money, claiming this was a rescue dog. Janet nodded miserably. And you didn't check for a microchip or post in any lost pet groups or contact animal control. Janet's voice was barely a whisper. Officer Schulte's expression hardened. He wasn't here to mediate anymore. He was investigating. Ma'am, you need to return this dog immediately to his legal owner. Based on what I'm hearing, she has grounds to pursue charges for theft and potentially fraud. Janet's hands were shaking as she held out Duke's leash to me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I took the leash, and Duke immediately came to my side, pressing against my leg. He knew. He'd known the whole time. Officer Schulte handed me his card. If you want to pursue charges, give me a call. We can discuss your options. I nodded, clipping Duke's leash onto my hand. Thank you. Come on, Duke. Let's go home. I walked out of that clinic with my dog and didn't look back. Duke was practically pulling me to my car before we even got to the parking lot. I opened the back door, and he jumped in like he'd been waiting for this moment for days. I sat in the driver's seat for a minute, just breathing. Then I drove home. Duke had his head between the front seats the whole way, his tail wagging like crazy. When we got inside, I took off his leash and he ran through every room like he was making sure everything was still there. I fixed him dinner, his regular food in his regular bowl. He ate like he was starving, even though I knew Janet had been feeding him. After he finished, I sat down on the kitchen floor, and he came over and put his head in my lap. I just held him, my face buried in his fur, feeling the last 5 days slowly drain away. I could finally breathe again. My phone buzzed around 7 that evening. I was still on the couch with Duke, who hadn't left my side since we got home. It was a screenshot from my friend Melissa. Someone had commented on Janet's Facebook post about rescuing Baxter. "Hey, wasn't that the dog that belonged to your neighbor? I saw a police officer at the vet clinic today with you and some other woman. Did that rescue dog actually belong to someone?" The comment had been up for 2 hours. Janet hadn't responded, but the post was still there, all her heart emojis and her story about how Baxter had chosen her family. I showed Duke the phone. "Look at that, buddy. The truth is coming out." He licked my hand. More comments appeared over the next hour. People asking questions. People saying they'd heard something about a dispute. One person said they'd even seen me searching for Duke that first day. Janet's perfect rescue story was falling apart in real time. My phone rang the next morning while I was making coffee. "Officer Schulte, I have your contact information from yesterday. I wanted to follow up about potential charges." I leaned against the counter. "What are my options?" "Well, we have theft of property. The dog has monetary value plus emotional value. We also have the fraud aspect with the GoFundMe. That's obtaining money under false pretenses." He paused. "I'm building a case. The question is whether you want to press charges or if you'd accept some form of restitution." "What kind of restitution?" "I want the GoFundMe money returned to everyone who donated, and I want a public apology. I want her to admit what she did." Officer Schulte was quiet for a moment. "That's reasonable. Let me contact her and see if she's willing to do that voluntarily. If not, we can pursue the criminal charges. Either way, you're getting justice here." "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I mean it. Thank you for taking this seriously. The first officer didn't. I remember. I read his report. This is different. She didn't just find a lost dog. She took him and then profited from it. That's not okay." We ended the call, and I sat down on the floor with Duke again. "It's almost over, buddy. Almost over." Janet showed up at my door around 4 that afternoon. I heard the doorbell and looked through the peephole to see her standing there with Paul behind her. They both looked like they hadn't slept in days. Janet's eyes were red and puffy. Paul kept shifting his weight from one foot to the other. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. Duke came up behind me and growled low in his throat when he saw Janet. She flinched at the sound. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I knew I should have checked for an owner. Janet's voice cracked. "I wanted a dog so badly. I've wanted one for years. When I saw him in my yard with no collar, I just thought the universe was finally giving me what I wanted." Paul put his hand on her shoulder. "We're sorry. We'll return all the GoFundMe money, every cent, and we'll make a public post correcting everything." Janet nodded. "I'll tell everyone the truth, that I took your dog without checking properly. I know that doesn't fix what I did, but we want to make it right." I stood there looking at them, these two people who had put me through 5 days of hell. Part of me wanted to slam the door in their faces, but they looked genuinely sorry, standing there on my porch like kids who got caught doing something wrong. I told them I needed to think about it and talk to a lawyer. Janet's face went even paler, but she nodded. "That's fair. That's completely fair." They left and I closed the door. Duke was still watching through the window as they walked back to their house. The next morning, I called my friend Rachel, who'd been through a legal thing last year. She gave me the number for her attorney, Maeve Collier. I called and explained everything. The microchip, the GoFundMe, Janet's offer to return the money and post an apology. Maeve listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Here's my professional opinion. You could absolutely pursue criminal charges. Theft, fraud with the GoFundMe. The prosecutor would probably take the case. But here's the thing. Criminal cases are unpredictable. Juries can be sympathetic to someone who says they thought they were rescuing a stray. You might win, you might not. And it'll take months, maybe over a year. Maeve paused. You already have your dog back. If they return the money and make a public admission of what they did, that's actually a pretty good outcome. You get restitution, they face social consequences, and you don't have to spend the next year in court. Plus, if they violate the agreement, you can still pursue charges later. I thought about it while Duke sat at my feet. What would you do? I asked. I'd take the restitution and the public apology, make them document everything, get it in writing. But I'd also make sure the police know about the agreement, so there's a record if they try to back out. That made sense. I thanked Maeve and hung up. Then I called Officer Schulte and told him about Janet's offer. He agreed it was a reasonable resolution and said he'd document everything in his report. That afternoon, Janet posted on Facebook. I was checking my phone every few minutes, waiting for it. When it finally appeared, my stomach churned. The post was long. I need to apologize to my neighbor and to everyone who donated to the GoFundMe I created. The dog I claimed to have rescued, who I called Baxter, actually belongs to my neighbor. His real name is Duke, and he's been her dog for 3 years. He got out through a loose board in the fence while she was giving him a bath. I saw him in my yard without a collar, and instead of checking if someone was looking for him, I kept him. I didn't post in the neighborhood group. I didn't knock on doors. I didn't call animal control. I wanted a dog so badly that I convinced myself he was a stray. When my neighbor came looking for him, I refused to give him back. I only returned him when a vet scanned his microchip and proved he was hers. I am returning all GoFundMe donations immediately. I'm deeply sorry for lying to everyone and for putting my neighbor through 5 days of not knowing where her dog was. What I did was wrong. The comments started within minutes. People I recognized from the neighborhood, from Janet's book club, from the local Facebook groups. Most of them were shocked. I can't believe you did this. How could you keep someone's dog? I shared your post about rescuing him. I feel like an idiot. Some people were furious. This is theft. You stole her dog and then asked for money? That's fraud. A few tried to be understanding, but you could tell they were uncomfortable. I'm sure you didn't mean any harm, but this is really serious. Several people unfriended her right there in the comments. You could see the friend count dropping. Janet didn't respond to any of the comments. The post just sat there with more and more people piling on. I felt weird reading it, satisfied that the truth was out there, but also kind of bad for her. It was humiliatingly public. Over the next week, Janet sent me screenshots showing the GoFundMe refunds processing. Every single donation got returned. She also sent me a spreadsheet documenting each refund with dates and amounts. I forwarded everything to Officer Schulte. He called me 2 days later. Everything checks out. All the money's been returned. I'm closing the case without filing charges, but I'm noting in my report that if she violates this agreement or causes you any more problems, criminal prosecution is still an option. Thank you for taking this seriously, I said. The first officer didn't care at all. I remember reading his report, he replied. This one actually matters. You did the right thing. Not everyone would have been willing to just move on. I spent the weekend reinforcing the fence. I bought new boards from the hardware store and replaced every loose one I could find. Then I added a heavy-duty lock to the gate, one that needed a key. Duke watched me work from the shade of the porch, a silent supervisor. When I finished with the fence, I took him to the pet store. I found a collar that let you embroider text directly onto it. I had them put my phone number on one side and his name on the other. Duke sat patiently while the woman measured his neck. He seems very calm, she said. He's been through a lot this week, I replied, a small smile playing on my lips. When we got home, I put the new collar on him and took a picture. He looked at me with those big brown eyes like he was wondering why I was making such a fuss. But I needed to know he was protected now, that if he ever got out again, anyone who found him would be able to call me immediately. The neighborhood changed after Janet's post. I noticed it first at the mailbox. People who used to chat with her would see her coming and suddenly remember they had somewhere to be. She'd walk up, and they'd already be walking away. I got the opposite treatment. Neighbors I barely knew stopped me to apologize. I shared Janet's rescue post. I had no idea. "I'm so sorry you went through that." One woman from 3 houses down brought me a casserole. I felt terrible when I saw the truth. This is just to say I'm sorry for not questioning her story. I thanked her and took the casserole, even though I didn't really need it. It felt like kicking someone when they were already down to reject her apology when she was trying to be nice. Paul turned into a ghost, tending their yard at absurd hours. I'd see him mowing the lawn at 7 in the morning on a Sunday, or trimming hedges at 9 at night with a flashlight. He was clearly trying to avoid running into people during normal hours. Colby deleted everything. I checked his Instagram one day out of curiosity, and all the photos with Duke were gone. His whole grid had gaps where posts used to be. I saw Janet looking out her window sometimes when I was walking Duke. She'd be standing there behind the curtain, and when I'd look up, she'd scuttle back into the shadows. Duke never looked at her house. He'd just keep walking like it didn't exist. A month went by. Duke and I fell back into our normal routine. Morning walks, breakfast, work from home with him sleeping under my desk. Evening walks, dinner, couch time. He seemed completely fine, like those 5 days at Janet's house never happened. But I checked on him constantly now. Every hour, I'd get up and make sure he was where I thought he was. I checked the fence every few days to make sure no boards had come loose. It wasn't paranoia, it was just smart, informed caution. I ran into Janet at the grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the produce section, picking out apples, when I heard her voice behind me. "I know you probably don't want to talk to me." I turned around. She was standing there with an empty cart, looking hollow, defeated, smaller somehow than she had before. "I just want you to know I'm sorry. I know saying it again doesn't fix anything, but I am genuinely sorry for what I did to you and Duke." I put an apple in my bag. "I appreciate the apology. I'm glad it's resolved." She nodded quickly. "Me too. Thank you for not pressing charges. I know you could have." We stood there for an awkward second. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Then I said I needed to finish shopping, and she said she understood. I watched her walk toward the back of the store while I continued picking out apples. It was the most civil conversation we'd had since this whole thing started. I heard through Rachel that Janet's book club had removed her from the group chat. Rachel was friends with one of the members who told her they'd had a vote about it. Most people thought Janet should be removed after what she did. A few argued that everyone makes mistakes and the social punishment was getting too harsh, but they got outvoted. Janet stopped going to neighborhood events after that. The monthly community meetings, the summer block parties, the holiday gatherings. I'd see the emails go out to everyone, and I knew she was getting them too, but she never showed up. Some people thought the neighborhood was being too hard on her. She made a mistake, they'd say. She apologized and returned the money. But most people disagreed. You don't steal someone's dog. That crosses a line. Duke and I settled back into everything. I was more careful now. The new collar stayed on except during baths, and even then I kept the bathroom door closed. I checked the fence weekly. I made sure the gate lock was working. The whole thing taught me something profound about people. They'll convince themselves of almost anything if they want something badly enough. Janet wanted a free dog so much that she turned Duke appearing in her yard into some kind of sign from the universe. She built this whole story in her head about rescuing a stray, but the microchip cut through all of that. It didn't care about her story or her justifications. It just showed the facts. Duke was mine. He'd always been mine, and no amount of wanting him to be hers could change that. 3 months passed, and I saw the for sale sign go up in Janet's front yard on a Wednesday morning. I was checking the mail when Paul came out to water the plants near the sign. and another neighbor asked him about it. "We just think it's time for a fresh start somewhere else," Paul said, looking down at his shoes. The neighbor nodded and walked away without asking more questions. I went back inside and watched through my window as Paul finished watering and went back in the house. A tiny, almost imperceptible part of me felt a pang of something akin to pity that they were leaving because of this whole situation. They'd lived there for 7 years, and now they were packing up and moving because Janet couldn't face the neighborhood anymore. Mostly, though, I felt this profound, undeniable sense of peace that the awkward situation would finally be over. No more avoiding eye contact at the mailbox. No more tense moments when we both happened to be getting into our cars at the same time. No more of that weird feeling every time I walked Duke past their house. By the time the moving truck showed up 2 months later, Duke and I had completely moved on from the whole incident. I still checked the fence every week and made sure the gate lock was working properly. The new collar with my phone number embroidered on it stayed on Duke all the time, except during baths. And even then, I kept the bathroom door closed and checked on him every few minutes. But I wasn't paranoid about it anymore. It was just being careful in a normal way. The microchip had done exactly what it was supposed to do. It proved Duke was mine when someone tried to take him. That little chip under his skin had more power than Janet's whole elaborate story about rescuing a stray. I made a note in my phone to check Duke's registration every 6 months and make sure all the information was current. The whole thing taught me that having proof matters more than anything else. So, what do you think? Have you ever had someone try to take something or someone precious from you? How did you fight for it? Tell me your stories and thoughts in the comments below. I really want to hear from you.